Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to Spiritual Infinity. And as you know, my name is Zenzi Sewa. I'm here in London, and my guest today is Dylan Borland, and he is in the States, and in fact, he's in Michigan. And Dylan, before I go any further, what's the weather like? I always like to ask people what the weather is like. What's the weather like over in Michigan? Because it's a bit overcast here in London.
Well, I'm looking at 7 inches of snow from yesterday. And 10 degrees. So, and it's November 10th. So northern Michigan is an Arctic tundra a lot of times.
Oh my God. I interviewed somebody yesterday in Canada, Ontario, and they were in snow for the last 2 days. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, us too. Yeah.
Oh, London. We don't see snow often. Scotland sees it. London doesn't see it often. Although it is nice when it does.
We get about 30 feet of snow a year.
Oh my God! How many feet have you got at the moment?
Well, it just started for the year, so we've got a little less than a foot.
Okay, all right.
And we start to get out of winter about June 1st. I can start gardening. So it's a long winter, but you know what, Zenzi? It creates an environment for all types of solitude, which is wonderful.
You're right. Now, let me say I'm only going to say a little bit of what Dylan does, because he's going to do all the talking. And Dylan is a person, and he likes to take people from an unconscious state of living to a conscious state of living. And that is when we start to awaken to who we really are and understand what's within and how to work with that. But he does a lot more. But I'm going to hand over the platform to him. So Dylan, please tell us your experience, your spiritual awakening, how it started, what you did, how you felt, because there's a lot of us in this world that are going through things, and sometimes the people around us just don't hear, and we think we're mad, and we're not. So I hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Zenzi, so much, and thank you for the work that you're doing as well on the platform. And hopefully we can add some value to your listeners today. Maybe, if anything, just entertainment value, right? That's that might be the case. But I appreciate the introduction. Like I described, we were chatting ahead of this podcast as well, and I'll get into my story and background also, because it's historically kind of always hard for me to talk about, because I'm not, believe it or not, I don't like to talk about myself. But like you had mentioned, it can help people, because there's a lot of people out there that, I remember listening to Alan Watts. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, and people like Wayne Dyer and Neville Goddard and things like that. They were big influences on me. And they often talked about, I call it remembering, but it's often called awakening as well. I like to call it remembering, because we remember who we are. And I think so many of the spiritual leaders and the religious teachers, when you boil down what they're saying at the root of it all, if you really take the time and study, and this is why I like scripture, and I often quote scripture so much, because Jesus used to teach in parables. And the reason for that is because, and I forget the quote within scripture, but basically he wanted people to spend time and do the real inner work and really think and contemplate as to what was being taught. And in order to create these states, in order to remember who you are and create these states of inner transformation, it's not done at the surface level. You really need to spend that time in solitude. You really need to spend that time in union, like the yogis used to call in union with God, and remembering who you are. And I like the word remembering, awakening. You could use the same thing. And I have a course that I created where it's literally titled that, Remember Who You Are, the Art of Conscious Creation. And those two pillars are really important, because we'll talk about what it means to be a conscious creator of your outer world. Neville Goddard used to say, you're always doing two things. You're either going through life and experiencing life in an unconscious state, consumed by the body, consumed by the material world, or when you remember who you are and that the power is within you, you can move from that unconscious state of being, which you and I had talked about a little bit ahead of this podcast, which for many of us, when we're consumed by this body and we're consumed by this world and this physical world as we see it, can create, not all the time, but in most of us, it can create quite a bit of fear, quite a bit of uncertainty, because you're identified with the body.
Yeah.
You're identified with the material possessions, but you forget, like Scripture used to say, I quote Scripture a lot, not from a Christian type of standpoint, but because I believe it fully contains, and so many religious texts do, profound wisdom about our experience here. And it says often, like, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Jesus used to say, you too can do all of these things and more if you just have faith. Now, here's a man that many look to within Scripture in the Bible as a miracle worker. He's going around healing. A lot of his work and ministry was healing. And he's saying to you, this is where you really need to stop and think. And I spent 2 or 3 years studying Scripture deeply. He's saying to you, whether you believe Jesus to be, I look at Scripture as metaphoric in a lot of sense. But whether you believe it to be metaphoric or literal, you too can do all of what I can do, Jesus Christ, and more.
Yeah.
If you simply have faith.
Yeah.
Right? And so I got fascinated with that idea. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to say something here. What you're saying, it really resonates with me, because as you are thinking, I'm thinking and I'm hearing, and it always struck me from a young child. This man was saying this. Right. He was telling us that we can be as him. And he's telling us, do as I do.
Yes.
And what he was showing us is that, look, this is how I do it. You can also do it.
My Father and I are one.
Yes. And the Scriptures are stories to guide us so that we can stand up and to strengthen us, encourage us. It's like another person in our life to encourage us, that unseen encouragement. And that's what the Scriptures are. Please go ahead, Dylan. Yeah.
Well, and I got fascinated by that idea, Zenzi, and it started way back. I'll talk about kind of where my spiritual journey began as well, but I got fascinated with this idea. And then I started studying like Buddhism. I started studying the teachings of Buddha and Hinduism and all these other religions, and also spiritual leaders like Alan Watts and Neville Goddard and Wayne Dyer and Ram Dass. And if you just, people often ask me, like, well, if you boil it down all to its essence, and I believe what a lot of Jesus's work here on earth was remember who you are.
Oh, yes.
That the power of God in creation flows through you.
Yes.
That's what they're all saying.
Right. That's what all of them. Yes.
And then you start to, so I got fascinated with that at the age of 16. So I actually grew up in a Catholic background. I grew up in Catholicism. Mm-hmm. And I remember not ever really believing in how Scripture was being taught, because a lot of, not all of, right? There's aspects of Catholicism, Christianity that are more mystical in nature, but for the most part, especially in the States, most of Catholicism and Christianity take Scripture as literal fact in history, right? Not despite the fact that Jesus is saying within Scripture, I speak in hyperboles. I speak in metaphors, right? But I grew up not really agreeing with how it was being taught. And then the other thing is, I grew up kind of a life that was difficult. A lot of us do. And I remember spending so many years just praying and praying and praying to God. And it got to the point where I was like, wow, like God just must not care about me at all, because not a single prayer is getting answered. My life is terrible. Nothing improves.
Yes.
And so there were two things. Well, and I can expand on that. So I do believe prayer works. I do believe affirmations work. I do believe we'll talk about the power of imagination to shape your outer world, but there's a component to that, and we'll expand on that later. But it's both faith, so it's having faith, and then you've got to have the feeling. of the wish fulfilled. And even scripture says within Bible, if you believe it to be, it will be done unto you, right? And so that's where the feeling comes in. That's where the faith comes in. So, and then there was another thing that happened at 16 where I couldn't sleep. My mind is very analytical. So it sees, I always say it sees the world like binary code, like the Matrix, just always going, just never stop. And so I left Catholicism at 16 and I went into my first kind of experiment in what you might call spirituality, just a different viewpoint, was in Zen Buddhism. Mm-hmm. And I used to use the principles of mindfulness and Zen Buddhism just to quiet my mind. And then, of course, my mind got quiet. I could stop that chatter. I could fall asleep on a dime. And I got really curious. And I started to say to myself, Senzi, like, what else could my mind do? And I used to get fascinated with, and I still am in my life, the power of the mind to heal. And I read so many stories of people healing themselves through thought alone. And it's not like, it's not a conspiracy theory. I have healed myself through thought alone. I have now witnessed countless people in my life heal themselves through thought alone. And so there were some challenges in my life where I applied this. I got so curious about this power of the mind. And there were two kind of, one major, one not so major instances in my life where then I sunk deeper into this principle. And I had a collapsed L4 and L5 disc in my back. So my discs were basically bone on bone. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't walk. If I sneezed, I would involuntarily collapse. If I moved the wrong way, I would involuntarily collapse. But at that point, I was in my mid-20s. And remember, I had started kind of this mindfulness and diving into the power of the mind to create and heal and shape your own world. By the way, scripture also talks about you can heal with faith.
You can heal yourself. Mm-hmm.
Right? Yep. So it's all there. It's all there. And so I began to do that, and I began to visualize. I did a lot of holistic work as well too, and I began to take some herbs and supplements and things to support the body and support healing. I began to visualize myself healing, visualize my disc growing back, and it took me about a year, but I healed myself. And I said, wow, if I can do all of these things with my mind, what is that saying to you? What so many different spiritual leaders have told us, what so many religions are telling us, if you take away the dogmatic practices of religion, they're all telling you that the power of God, the power of creation is within you.
Thank you.
So once and it's hard to believe that until you have those experiences.
Yeah.
And then you have one after another. And then you get to a point where you say, there's something here. What is everybody telling me? And then you can create your outer world with near predictability. Mm-hmm. And I say near because really the only thing that gets in the way of that is whatever's happening up here, right? So I always say this is, you can test it for yourself. So I don't like to discuss things. I'm a high analytical. I treat life as like a scientist. So I don't like to say this is the truth or that's the truth without being able to confidently stand on it and say, guess what? You, Zenzi, can take what we're discussing, do it yourself, and see for yourself. Mm-hmm. Everybody can.
Yep.
And so I always tell people, don't listen to what I'm saying. That's why I literally wrote a book on it. 50-page book. And the key word here is a self-experiment in conscious creation. Because I want people to see for themselves and experience for themselves that the power of creation, that you are God expressing himself, herself, however you want to relate to it, through everyone and everything. All the spiritual teachings and religious teachings, if you take away the dogmatic nature of them, are telling you the same thing. And that all of reality is what you believe it to be.
Yeah.
If you believe that you're going to be sick, it's like a patient who goes to a hospital and the doctor tells him you got 6 months to live. And we've all heard or seen stories of this. If that person believes they've got 6 months to live and they make the preparations to live 6 months, oftentimes they'll pass away in 6 months. If the person says to themselves, no, I don't, in one year and out the other. I don't believe that. I'm going to heal.
Yeah.
And you can go and research this on your own. Tens of thousands of examples of this, if you have not experienced this in your own life. And then that person lives. And so what's happening there? It's like, I used to do, and so during my time from 16 to about 34, and then I spent 3 years in Christian faith, I went way out there. I practiced with everything. So I like to experiment. I practiced with crystals. I practiced with astral projections. I practiced with all types. I just went out there. And everything Earth has to offer.
Yeah.
You know what it all boils down to? If you believe it, it's like the placebo effect. If I gave you a pill that said it's going to heal you, and you believe that, you would be healed. And so it all works. The crystals work. The prayer works. The affirmations work. If you believe them to work. If you believe yourself to be poor, you will be poor. If you believe yourself to be unlucky, you will be unlucky. If you believe yourself to be destitute, you will be destitute. And so on and so on. That can be said about everything in your life, in your outer world. So then the real challenge is, and like we talked about earlier, is, it sounds great. We'll get into how do you go from unconscious living to conscious creation. But you also have to remember who you are. Mm-hmm. You have to remember and believe that the power of God and the power of creation, like Jesus used to say, you too can do all of what I can do and more. You could tell that mountain to move and it would move if you had faith.
Yeah.
So in order to embody that, it starts with like what we like to call awareness.
Yes.
You have to first become aware. Something's here, that feeling. There's something more to life, right? Then you have to remember who it is that you are. So we have 4 pillars of conscious creation. So then you become aware. Then you remember, oh, okay, wow, the power of God and the power of creation is within me.
Yep.
What everybody's saying to you, if you boil it down at its root. And then you can move into that 3rd pillar, what we call that conscious creation, being a conscious creator of your life. Because I want to stress this so much, that all of what you experience in your outer world is a mirror of your inner world. Creation first starts in your inner world.
Yeah.
And then your outer world will reflect that. Yep. And so you can do simple things about yourself. I mean, if you've got a bad relationship with somebody, we like to use a tool we call recontextualization. And so instead of telling yourself and believing over and over you don't like this person, the new story. Power of creation is within you. Start to visualize, and it can expand on this too, but start to visualize the opposite. Better relationship with this person, smiling, embracing, you name it. And watch how quickly that happens. Just, from a 10,000 foot overview, right? So, and why does this matter? It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. You can go through life and still be unplugged and pass away, and that's the end of it, right? But for a lot of people here, we get consumed with this body. We get consumed with this world. And for many of us, and I know this was the case for me and maybe some of the listeners, it's not the case for everybody, but it can create a lot of fear. It can create a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of victimhood. Everybody else is to blame. The world is against me. And it's not a comfortable way to live for a lot of people. And so when you begin this work, you move away from that fear, you move away from that scarcity, you move away from that victimhood and that blame, and you move into a state of what we call conscious creation, where you realize that everything you experience in your life is a result of your inner world. And that if you want to transform your life, your relationships, your health, your business, your finances, You and only you have the power to do that.
Yep.
And then you move into states of flow instead of fear. You move into better health because so much of that fear and worry and anxiety takes a toll on your body and your health. You know, you move into opportunities. I used to study Zenzi, the Tao Te Ching, because Wayne Dyer used to talk about it a lot. And I think it was Chinese, actually. I don't remember now. But one of the biggest concepts that I gained in that, and I started to apply in my business and my life, was watch what nature does.
Yes. It's an example, isn't it?
Yeah. Nature doesn't struggle.
No.
Nature doesn't fight. Nature doesn't wake up in the morning and say, gosh, how am I going to pay my insurance bill? Right?
Or
nature doesn't worry about it. It just is. It just flows.
Yes.
It just flows. All of nature just flows. So why, as human beings, do we want to spend so much time going against nature? Why not move into alignment?
Yes.
The water doesn't say to the rock, excuse me, rock, I'm going to force you out of my way. It moves around it with ease. Doesn't think about it. You know, the bird doesn't wake up in the morning and say, oh man, I'm really struggling to find something to eat tonight. No, it just wakes up and does its thing.
Yeah.
And like scripture used to tell us, it still tells us, I am always with you. I will always provide for you. Fear not. That's said hundreds, if not thousands of times within scripture. Fear not. I will always provide for you.
Yeah.
And isn't that the case? So why do we worry so much? Because we're consumed with these bodies. We're consumed. We have forgotten our essence.
Yeah.
We have forgotten who we are. And it's not for everybody to remember who you are. Everybody's on their own journey.
Yes.
You know, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But for people like you and I, and maybe some of your listeners, we want to move into a space of flow. We want to move into a space of conscious creation. We want to move away from anxiety and fear and struggle, because it doesn't have to be that way. It's that way because you believe it has to be that way. That's what culture teaches us. That's what society beats into us. We're like cogs in a wheel.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's programming.
Programming and some of the things we say. You have to work hard for your daily bread. And all these little things, you know, and it's like, why?
You have to hustle. You have to hustle harder.
You have to put your shoulder to the wheel. Why? When God is flowing in us, through us, around us, and we are that connection, why do we have to put the shoulder to the wheel? Why do we have to hustle? Why do we have to work so hard?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you tell me if you or your listeners have read any scripture, and maybe you haven't, where in scripture does it says you have to hustle and grind your way through life?
I've never read it. It's true. It doesn't say that.
Where does it say in the Hindu text you have to hustle and grind your way through life?
It doesn't.
Where in Buddhism does it say you have to hustle and grind your way through life? And I just use these as examples because this is what most people are familiar with.
Yeah. Yes.
It doesn't, Senzi. You know that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So why are we not listening?
Yes.
We just want to struggle.
You know it. You said something very, very poignant and very true. Our programming.
Yeah.
Although, and this is why a lot of people, a lot of the youth, you know, they're so-called disillusioned with Christianity in the Bible. But what really, they're disillusioned at what they've been told, the way it's been taught, and what's been going on. And it's time that we become aware, quite rightly, as you said, Dylan, that the programming,
Yeah.
You know, if you want to hide something, you do it right in front of everybody. If you want to tell a lie, it's to take some of the truth and then you wheel the lie around it, and it's right in front of us. The Bible, as you said, doesn't say those things, and it's telling you everything's within us, and yet it's
Literally.
as though God is out there, we're nothing, we just have to keep begging and not, we're not really listening. And some of it's been bent as well.
Yeah.
But what Jesus said, you know, what is in me is in you. Many will come afterwards and do greater than me.
Yeah.
He said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are children of God. Well, come on, if we're child of God, then what is happening? Was he not the Son of God? And this is another thing. He is the Son of God. And we are the children of God.
Yeah.
Well, hello, because he was the Son of God and we are the child of God. I don't know about you, Dylan, but I think I am the daughter of God.
Yeah.
If I'm his child, I'm also his daughter.
Yeah. And I would say it goes deeper than that.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you boil down, and I got fascinated with the life and work of Jesus. I studied it intimately. And I think at the end of the day, what he was trying to say is remember who you are.
Yes.
He's not saying I, Jesus, am the only one. I'm the way, the truth, and the only way to God. That's not what he's saying. He's saying you are too, by the way. He literally says that.
Yeah.
And he's trying to walk this earth. And at the time, it was a radical idea. Even up until recent modern day.
Yeah.
When you talked about religion in this way, you were an outcast. Still.
Yeah.
So imagine 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I think at the core of his work and his ministry was literally just that. Remember who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's deeper than that. It's not that we're a son or daughter of God. I think that it's, and you can experiment with this yourself. You are God.
Thank you.
You are creation.
I just took that because of the Jesus factor, you know. So it's like, if he's that, we're that.
And he's saying, and he's literally saying that.
I and the Father are one.
So is the Buddha. So is Hindu work. So is everybody else.
So
if
you
take a step back from a level of creation, you realize, okay, so what is God? You think of God, it's like God is creation. And God is expressing himself or herself through all things in this. Alan Watts used to describe it as a dream, as a big cosmic play.
Yeah.
And I love to think of it that way.
Yeah.
And then you begin to see yourself in everyone and everything.
Yes.
And you realize that it's all God.
Yes.
In just expressing and playing and saying, I'm going to be Zenzi, and I'm going to be Dylan, and I'm going to be Frank and Paul, and all of these things.
Yes.
And one of the greatest audios I listened, I would say probably the funnest, was Alan Watts' lecture on this. Imagine if you were, it's called something along the lines of like a dream, life as a dream. And he goes through and he takes you through this journey of imagine if you were God and you creator of all things. And he said, at first you would probably be creating and having everything you want. And then at some point that would get boring.
Yeah.
And then you would sprinkle in a little bit of drama. Ooh, that's exhilarating. A little bit of drama. Oh, let's have a little bit more. Let's have some of wars and this and that. And oh, this is fun. Right? And it's a fascinating lecture and audio to listen to because it just makes sense in a playful way. If you envision that all of what we're experiencing is almost like a dream. And oftentimes when you dream and you wake up, there's many times, and I'm sure you've had this, where you don't know that was a dream. You wake up and you feel that was real.
That's real.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
yes.
I think people have gotten, really they have. Everybody is born onto this planet in physical form, and you're a blank slate. And so then what happens? Well, the subconscious mind, it doesn't care what you imprint upon it. And so, whatever you repeat to your subconscious mind over and over and over again, it says, okay, that's going to be our reality. Let's have fun with it. You believe you're unlucky? Yeah, cool. Let's go through life. That would be fun. Let's do that. So what happens is you're born, and then your mom and dad have an imprint on you. They say things like you said earlier. What are some of the things you were told as a kid growing up? Well, that becomes your truth.
Yes.
You get involved in religion. That becomes your truth.
Politics.
That becomes your truth. And
Government.
and then what happens is, very shortly, probably after, I call it your playful years, into your teens, you basically become programmed to forget who you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Most people.
Yeah.
And then you get identified and consumed with this human experience.
Yes.
And we have already talked about what that can lead to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the good news is just as imprintable your mind is to these cultural beliefs and dogmatic beliefs and things like that, once you become aware that this is happening, you can redo the story.
Yes.
And I like to think of life in terms of chapters. And so here I am, at the time of this video, I'm 39 years old. I'm on chapter 39.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I don't like this chapter, I can create a new one.
Yeah.
If I don't like this act, I can create a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we're here to do.
Yes.
If you take a step back and realize it's all play, but people get consumed with their role. They get consumed with their body. They get consumed with, I'm the doctor. You're just a big child playing doctor. I'm the attorney. I'm the politician. I'm the accountant. It's just a play.
Yeah. Within this lifetime.
And you can change that at any point in time. But we get consumed with it, right? Yeah. But that's the beauty of it. And so what I try to do, Zenzi, is I try to help people. You can't help anybody who can't, there's an old saying, right? Like, you can't show anybody something with their eyes closed, something along those lines.
Yeah. And
so our work is not to walk around. Our work's really not to do anything, right? It's just to live our life. And if people say, hey, what are you doing? You seem to be happy. You seem to be moving through life effortlessly. What are you doing? I don't mind sharing. You can try this too. But really, a lot of the work that I do is in people that have become aware of this.
Yes.
Because now they sense something is there. And then I help people transition into a state of what we call the conscious creator, and realizing that your imagination is the powerhouse of all of what you experience in your outer world. It's the biological mechanism in which that occurs. And before we dive into that, I always often tell a story. It's a very easy thing to realize. Eckhart Tolle, have you read his book, The Power of Now?
Yes.
So I remember reading that, gosh, probably 15 years ago, maybe somewhere around that time. And one of the things he said in there is, if you want to know who the real you is, quiet your mouth and say something in your mind, a sentence. Do that now. Okay. So you heard that as loud as you and I are talking on this podcast, did you not? Everybody did. All your listeners, if they're participating, you heard that voice. You heard those words like we're talking right now. So then you've got to ask yourself, who is that heard that? And Eckhart would say that was the real you. That was God. That was your soul. That was your essence. That's the real you. So if you want to know who you are, you want to remember who you are. Who is that heard that statement in your mind? That's you. Not Zenzi, not Dylan, not this body, but God. And remember learning that for the first time. And I just went on this like trance for like 8 hours. I was like, phew. It was just so because I felt it. I felt it at that moment in time. You know, I remembered who I was. And so that's a simple thing that people can do to kind of remember,
and
you know, who you are.
And I feel when they do that, because I know when I sit quietly and I do that, you feel it within your solar plexus and you feel it within your heart. There is a stirring. You do. It's like a shifting, an opening.
Well, we teach in so I have a 12-week course on inner transformation. And one of the modules is stillness. And you can read all the spiritual text. You can, you know, Buddha sat under the tree for 7 days until he heard himself again, heard God again. And you can't begin to reconnect with who you are with all the outer noise.
No.
And so we often teach people, and in pretty much every religious and spiritual practice that I know of, you even look at the Native Americans. They go on a spirit quest.
Mm-hmm.
Buddha sat under a tree for seven days.
Quietly.
And then went and did more. Jesus would go off every morning in solitude and prayer with God. The yogis, same thing. And so you can hear God the loudest in the silence.
Yes.
You have to eliminate the outer noise, the outer world, the outer opinions, the distractions, the social media, the text messages, the phone calls, the emails, the chaos of a city. I used to live in a city. Now I'm out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. But, or sometimes, like I teach my students, you can just get in a car and drive for 4 hours and just silence. Escape that energy of the city, escape that noise and distraction of that environment. And that's when you can really remember. But knowing that, so once you are aware and once you remember, then comes the fun, then comes the play. And that's what we teach about the power of your imagination to shape your outer world. And the key to that is, because I had told you at the beginning of this podcast, I'd spent many years in my life praying, begging, and pleading to God and reciting scripture. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. You are always with me. Over and over. In fact, things just got worse. And I said, something's off here. Something is not working here. So I went back to my spiritual roots and what I had learned in the spiritual world. And I remembered, oh, okay, remember who I was. I'm not separate from God. I think that's a challenge that we face in a lot of religion is there's nowhere in scripture that says you are separate from God, but they pull you apart. And I just use that because that's a book that many people are familiar with.
Yeah.
I said, no. God's not up there. I don't have to beg and plead to God. God is within here. The temple is within. Kingdom of heaven is within. Mm-hmm. The power of creation is within me. Mm-hmm. And then I remembered, and then I changed. I went from prayer, from begging and pleading to, no, I am the creator. And then I remembered, it's not enough to just visualize what you want, which oftentimes, prayer without faith is meaningless. Mm-hmm. And scripture will tell you that. And so it's not enough to just visualize and just pray. You have to feel
emotions. You
have to feel it. Mm-hmm. And I should have that by me, but there is scripture that literally says when you pray, feel it and have faith and it will be yours. Not it might be yours. Not maybe it will be yours. Not some things will be yours, but all things. And so when we use our imagination to create and reshape our outer world, we start to reprogram these beliefs, this framework, that you are not limited, that you are limitless.
Thank you.
Yes. And all of these things, right? And so what we do with our imagination. So again, if we look at what's happening, the power of the subconscious mind, its job is to not decipher if this is true or not true, because nothing's really true or not true. You are free to create whatever you want, good or bad, and everything in between.
That's it.
And your subconscious mind just, okay, let's roll with it. This will be fun, right? And the way in which that works is you impress upon it. So just like so many of us have these cultural beliefs and these dogmatic beliefs that have been pressed upon us over and over again, you can unravel all of that. And so, for example, you might say to yourself, you might use your imagination, like if you were trying to get a new job, just very simple thing. You wouldn't visualize yourself getting a new job because that would imply you don't have it.
Right.
You would create, like Bill Goddard used to say, in your mind, a scene, a very short scene, a snippet that would imply you already have your job. So it could be a phone call from a friend congratulating you on your new job, because now you already have it. You're living from within the end, like Neville Goddard used to teach. Not wanting, which sometimes you get caught up with prayer, wanting and hoping, and it will never come to be. And Scripture does not say to want and hope. It says to believe, and it will be yours.
That's right.
To live from the end. And so then you create a scene in your mind that implies you already have it. So it's that phone call from a friend, congratulations, Zenzi, on your new success of your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you attach the feeling to that in your mind. And so you feel that phone call. Where are you sitting? In your office? In your studio? On a bench? Doesn't matter. Wherever you want to be sitting. That's most likely to be where you would be sitting. And you begin to hear the sounds. And you begin to feel the calm. I've made it. And you begin to feel it and embody it. And you continue to repeat that with feeling. And then now here's where faith comes in. Not faith from a dogmatic point of view, but faith in terms of believing what is not yet seen. Despite what your outer world is telling you.
Yeah.
Despite that, it took me a year to heal my back. There were many times in that year where I said, I want to give up. My outer world is not showing what I'm visualizing every day. A year. There's been times where I've done things for years. But sometimes things happen in a day or weeks or months too. They can happen quickly. And that's all your inner conviction. So now here's where faith comes in. So now you continue to loop that into your mind until it becomes your new truth. Until you feel it to such a point where you can no longer distinguish whether it was your imagination or your outer world. Like as if you woke up from a dream. You've had a dream and you felt that dream to be so real, you can't tell. Like, was I really there? That's where you get yourself in terms of using your imagination. And the feeling is the big component of that. The faith is a big component of that. Despite what's happening in your outer world, despite things appearing to not change, you have to have faith that you are the creator. You are creating. Your outer world is always on a leg from your inner world, and it must show up. Yeah. If you continue, and even Scripture says, all you need to do, you don't have to figure out how or why. All you need to do is have faith.
That's right.
And it will be so.
And it will be so. And in that faith, even if you don't see on the surface, things are being put into place for that which you have asked for to happen.
Yeah.
How it's going to happen, you don't need to know. It can happen just like that.
Yeah.
Because it's been worked on. But it's not how you may want it to be worked on, but it's been worked on to give you that which you've asked for.
Right. That's exactly it.
So Dylan, you've written that book and you've done those things. How can people connect with you? How can people connect with you to work with you, or if you've got seminars going on, if you've got retreats going on, how can people connect?
Thank you for asking that. The simplest thing is I keep everything on our website. So you can go to cadenacademy.com, CADEN, and everything is available there. But the thing that I really want to draw most people's attention to are a few things. One, join the 12-week course. You can join the first 3 weeks for free. And if it's making sense to you, you can continue on from there. But this is, it's called Remember Who You Are, the Art of Conscious Creation. And it's a 12-week journey to remember who you are and begin to take back control of your outer world.
Yes.
And you do a self-assessment when you first go in and then an assessment when you get out. And you go through this journey of remembering and then playing. Oh, this is really possible. And so that's a wonderful resource. And like I said, the first 3 weeks are free. So you can kind of see if it makes sense to you or not.
Yeah.
And then even better than that, well, that is not even better. You can also start with this book, which is only about 50 pages, called Imagination Creates Reality. It's a self-experiment in conscious creation. So it's literally telling you step by step. There's no fluff. I don't go into stories and fluff and fill it so it's 200 pages. It's here's what you can do to test this for yourself and experiment with yourself. And you can do it quickly. And so you can get that on Amazon or at cadenacademy.com. It's super inexpensive. And so those are usually the two places I tell people to start. To start with that 12-week course, why not? It's free for the first 3 weeks. And start with that book, The Self-Experiment in Conscious Creation, and treat life as a scientist. So kind of for a moment, suspend what you believe to be true or not true. And say, I'm going to run an experiment here.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah. And listen, what you do is what I say to people. There is nothing wrong with challenging. Don't necessarily believe everything. Challenge what you hear and experiment, challenge to see if it works or not.
Yeah.
Nothing in that.
Wayne Dyer used to say, Zenzi, I have a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing.
That's right. And
wow, does life become fun when you embody that principle?
Yes. Yes. And I'm finding that and seeing that, and that resonates. And I actually do that. It's keeping that mind open, because the man of wisdom listens to everything. And then where it makes sense and the seeds, you adopt it. And if it doesn't make sense, you let it go, because you don't know everything. We're changing, we're evolving all the time. So as we grow, the information will add to us to grow, to be stronger, but our minds have to be open.
Yeah.
Dylan, before I say thank you and let you go, please, can you leave with us some golden nugget of advice or encouragement, or 2 golden nuggets or 3 golden nuggets of advice to our viewers to help us along our journey?
Well, I think we just touched base on one, right? I think when you go through life with an extreme curiosity and having a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing, it allows you the freedom to explore. And test for yourself what makes sense or what doesn't make sense. So I would encourage people to treat life as one big experiment as a scientist. I would encourage people to not take life so seriously. And to suspend your opinions for a little while, because oftentimes our opinions are the root of our suffering.
Yes.
So I used to have a coach that would tell me oftentimes to go on a 30-day opinion diet and just to experience life in a playful fashion. And to remember that you are not powerless. You are not a victim of life. You are not a victim of circumstances. And to remember that if you really take a moment to stop and think about everything you've experienced in life, has it not been a direct mirror and reflection of what your innermost belief is? Really stop and contemplate that for a moment. Every single thing that you've experienced in your life, has it not been what you believe in your mind to be true?
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, can you not change the story? You can.
Yes.
And so to change the story and watch how your outer world transforms.
Dylan, thank you so much for that. And you're absolutely right. It is what we have told ourselves, and it's through our growing up, society, whatever. But it's time for us to remember who we really are, and that we are co-creators and we can change the story. So for everybody today, thank you so much to Dylan for coming here to and speaking with us today and sharing his experience and sharing the things he's doing. And if it resonates with you, he's given you his website. You've seen the book. I will put it up on my write-up so that you can connect with him. And for me, Senti Sewa, Spiritual Infinity, thank you all for joining us. And bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.